Welcome to the TC Dojo from Single Sourcing Solutions. The TC Dojo is a TechCom community that is driven by you. Tell us what you want to learn. You choose the topics and we find the experts. In the TC Dojo open session today, we have Gosia Radymiak here to talk about DITA reuse. Gosia is a customer success manager for easyDITA, a DITA component content management system based in Rochester, New York. She works to train and assist international users of easyDITA's software. Prior to working for easyDITA, Gosia earned experience with the TechCom industry at IBM and Motorola Solutions as a technical writer, learning project manager, and eventually as the team lead at Motorola Solutions in 2015. We are especially grateful that she could come to the TC Dojo today to share her experience with all of us. Now, Gosia has a lot to cover, so she wants to save questions until the end. Be sure to type them in when you think of them so you don't forget what you wanted to ask. Gosia, it's all yours.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay, everyone. Hopefully you can see just my screen without the toolbar. Hi everyone, my name is Gosia. I'm, as Liz said, a customer success manager at easyDITA, and I'm Europe-based, so it's evening here, but I'm very pleased to meet you all. Today, we'll cover some basics of data reuse, and I have prepared a table of contents for you. So first of all, we'll take a look at the core of reuse, so what is data basically in short. Then we'll go through a number of reuse types, the most common ones. We'll take a look at something that is basically, it's not reuse strategies, but it's the first step that you need to take to build your own reuse strategy. And then we'll also take a look at how you can reuse your content so that you can easily manage it. So first of all, the core of reuse is DITA. What is DITA? I'm not sure how many of you is familiar with the standard, the DITA standard, so I'll just give you a little introduction to it. So basically, DITA is a standard that was developed by IBM a while ago, and they created it to help their technical authors create content in a more organized and structured way. And when they implemented it, they realized, how beneficial it is. And so they decided to give it as a standard to Oasis, the organization that currently takes care of the standard and builds on it. And Oasis in 2005, they released it publicly. And from that moment on, we can all benefit from it. So in general, DITA allows you to organize your content into basic building blocks that we like to call topics. And on the screen, you can see a content library. And inside of it, you have a number of topics. One of them is green, one of them is blue, and the rest is gray. And these topics can be grabbed from your content library and organized with maps. So basically containers that help you build the TOC of your content. And from the maps, they can be published to different outputs. So you can build a map that contains just a few topics. Then you can build a different map that contains the same topics plus a number of different topics plus a different map. And then you can basically publish to EPUB, PDF, a portal, HTML, Microsoft Word, a lot of outputs, basically everything you need. So in a nutshell, this is DITA. What are the benefits of DITA? Why would you want to learn about it? Why would you want to use it? Here is an overview, a very high level view of the benefits of DITA. So first of all, content management. You have all of your content in one repository that is easily searchable. Secondly, because DITA is granularized, it makes your content and your content development process more agile, so the workflow is much better. Then publishing, I already mentioned. Translation and localization. When your content is in DITA, you can benefit from even, for example, the fact that you can define which content you want to send for localization and which should not be translated. There is much more to it. Then interoperability and scalability. DITA is an open standard, which means that if you have your content organized in DITA and you no longer like the system you work in, you can just download it and put it into a different system that is better for you. So you're not locked with a specific tool or format. You're free to move around the tools that are best for you or solutions. And then, of course, reuse, which is the part we're going to focus on today. So I won't cover this one right now. Okay, so what is reuse? Basically, reuse is something that you do once and then you kind of reuse what you've done. So for example, you can write once and reuse everywhere. So there is no copy pasting here. There is no creating different instances of the same content. You basically write once, and from this one source, you use in multiple different for example, maps, outputs, you output to different output types. Okay, so that was my very short introduction to DITA and reuse in general, the benefits of DITA and so on. Let's move to the core of it. So we'll take a look at a number of the most common reuse types. First of all, you can reuse entire topics with DITA. Secondly, you can reuse entire groups of topics. Then we'll go a little lower, so we'll go inside one topic and we'll take a look at how you can reuse parts of topics. And then we'll go even one level lower, so we'll take a look at variable phrases. And then number 5 is not actually reusing content, but it's repurposing your content so that from one source you can publish to multiple audiences or platforms or products, for example, which is something you can do by filtering your content. Okay, so let's get started with reuse types. First of all, reuse topics. To reuse topics, you need topics first, right? So what you see here is a content library, and in this content library, you have a number of topics. You have introduction, benefits, and then maintenance. And your business team comes to you and they tell you that, well, we need to create a maintenance manual for this new system that we just created, so you go and do it. So what you do with DITA, you create a map and go to your content library, and from this content library you select a few topics that are suitable for your content. And let's say that you have identified 3 topics: introduction, maintenance, and troubleshoot. So you reference those topics in your map for maintenance manual. You have it added, and basically, let's say that this is a very short manual, it's done. But then this is not reuse yet, right? So it turns out that your team, the business team, comes to you and say, or the architect, whoever decides what manuals, what content is actually created, they come to you and say, well, now we need an engineer manual. So you create a map for engineer manual, and you identify some topics that you already have in your content library, or write new topics. You add them to your map, and then you add some more that are specific for your content. So basically, you end up with 3 topics in your engineer manual that are reused with the maintenance manual, and these are introduction, maintenance, and troubleshoot. And then in the engineer manual, you have some topics that are not shared with a different manual. They're just used once. So basically, this is how you would reuse topics. You create one topic and then you reference it in a number of different maps, and then publish a deliverable out of the maps. And just to give you an idea, how just creating one topic and referencing it, how much time it can save you, I'll give you some numbers here. So based on a white paper written by Mark A. Lewis, titled DITA Metrics, Saving Trend with Reusable Master Topics, which is linked in the slides at the end of this webinar. From this white paper, we learned that if we document similar products, topics reuse, so reusing topics, can save us up to 40% with 3 similar products, up to 49% of time with 4 products, and up to 54% of time with 5 products. If you have more, you save even more time. So you can see more or less how much time you can save with just reusing topics. And this is the first reuse type we have discussed. So let's move to the next one. We can also reuse groups of topics. So here is our map for maintenance manual. We just created it and we are about to release it. But then our legal department comes to us and say, hey, you guys, are you kidding? This map has no legal information. You need content such as copyrights and so on and so forth. So here it is. And they create it for you. And they say, you better add it because otherwise we're going to be in trouble. So what you can do is you can add each of these topics individually to your map, and then go to all of the rest of the maps and add this. Or you can group these 3 topics into a different map and then put a map inside a map. So now you have a master map for maintenance manual, and inside of it you have a map dedicated to legal information only that already contains content that is structured in a specific way. The hierarchy of this content is correct, and you don't need to worry about the order of the topics and so on and so forth. So this is very, very helpful. What is more, some of CMSs, CCMSs can also help you automate this step. So instead of adding a map full legal information manually to your map, some CMSs or CCMSs can add it automatically upon the creation of a new map from a template. This is even more time saved. Okay, so this is reusing groups of topics. Let's go now a little bit lower. So we'll go inside a topic and we'll take a look at how you can reuse parts of topics. So what is part of a topic? Inside of a topic, you usually have a title, you can have a note, you can have a paragraph or more, you can have a list of definitions and terms. You can also have steps if it's a procedure, and so on and so forth. So all of these are parts of a topic that are reusable, and you can reuse them pretty easily. So what you can see right now on the screen is a warehouse topic. And this warehouse topic contains 2 steps. These steps relate to basically toasting bread, because we are now writing manuals for toasters. So we have 2 topics. The first topic is toasting bread with lightning toaster, and the other one is toasting bread with classic toaster. And because they are toasters, you can tell that, basically toasting bread is similar, across different toasters. So you can imagine that a lot of steps inside a manual for a toaster will be exactly the same. So because they are the same, instead of, writing them and just copy pasting them, I can add my steps inside a warehouse topic that is basically a container for all elements that are reusable. And thanks to organizing them in this way, I know exactly where to go to find my reusable content. So I go there, and what I do with DITA is I pull these steps from my warehouse content into my actual content topics, so into my toasting bread topics. And what happens here is not only I have written a step once and then reused each of them twice, but also if a change happens, so for example, instead of pressing down the lever in step 2, we will now press the start button. If a change like this happens, I only need to go to the Conref warehouse topic, make the change in this one place once, and then it will be applied to all my content wherever it was added, reused with a Conref. It will be changed automatically for me. And here again, I have some numbers for you. This time, it's a different white paper, but still by Mark A. Lewis. And it's also linked at the end of this webinar. And basically what Mark says is that, again, when you reuse content in documentation for similar products, you save up to 32% of your time with 3 products and almost 50% with 5 products. And this is for reusing parts of topics only. So the previous numbers for reusing entire topics in these numbers add up in other words. Okay, so this is reusing parts of topics. Now, variable phrases. What are variable phrases? They are snippets of content. So we are now inside of topic elements. So a variable phrase can be, for example, a product name. And in here you can see 2 maps. The first one is for classic toaster and the other one is for lightning toaster. And you can see that in each of these maps, there is a toasting bread topic added. What's very important for you to understand here is that this is the same topic. It's not 2 topics. It may seem so, but it's the same topic that is just added to 2 different maps. And what you can see is that even though it's the same topic, in each map I can see a different name for the product, so for the toaster. How is that possible? It's very simple. You can do that with Conrefs. So a mechanism that DITA offers to change in a very smart way variables, for example, for product names. So to do that, what you need to do in each of the map, you need to have a variable warehouse topic. In this variable warehouse topic, you need to have an element with an ID assigned to it, and the ID needs to be identical for both maps. And just to make sure you understand, variable warehouse topics need to be separate topics for each map. So these are 2 different topics, but inside of each one, we have the same ID assigned to a value. So ID product name in the classic toaster map is assigned to value classic toaster, and ID product name, so the same, is assigned to value lightning toaster for the lightning toaster map. Now, these variable warehouse topics are added to the maps with an identical key, which is vars. And now when you add a conref inside of your topic, again, toasting bread is just one topic. When you add a conref that takes you to vars and product name, for the classic toaster map, this conref will resolve to classic toaster, and for lightning toaster map, it will exactly the same key will resolve to a different value, so lightning toaster. And as a result, you basically can reuse the same topic even though the product name is different. It doesn't have to be product name, but it's basically a variable that differs for the same product, based on, for example, audience or product type. And here again, when a change occurs, you basically make it in one place. So let's say that marketing say, let's change classic toaster to classy toaster. It's going to sell better. Okay, then you just go to your variable warehouse, change classic toaster to classy, and then this change is applied across your entire content library, everywhere where you added classic toaster as a conref, just like that. So again, it's a huge time savement, and also, there is consistency involved in quality of content with this type of reuse and so on and so forth. But I won't go into detail about this because we don't really have time for this. In the last reuse-related mechanism, because it's not actually reuse, is how you can filter your content with DITA. So basically, sometimes you may need to have some content that contains information for both internal and external audience, for both advanced and beginners. And you want to be able to, filter out the content that is not applicable to a specific audience type. Well, then you can just add an attribute to a specific element. We have a blue node that is internal, and we publish our content to, for end users. And basically, with the attribute added here, and the DITA val element applied to your publishing scenario, you can make sure that whatever is internal is excluded from a specific publication, and then the end user does not see any internal content. So this is, these mechanisms are very powerful, especially when you combine them, and we'll take a look at that in a moment. Right. Reuse strategies. I'm not really going to, go into building a reuse strategy because we don't have time for this. But I'd like to show you how you can combine all of these reuse mechanisms in one, one content to get a lot of efficiency and time saving. So I have prepared one reuse scenario for you. And in this scenario, we assume that we have a number of languages into which we localize. We have more than one product, and we have more than one audience. And we have our classy toaster manual, right? So in this one manual, we have 2 topics, and these topics are shared with Lightning Toaster, with and a number of different toasters. So, the content here is shared, and basically whatever is shared is highlighted in a color. So you can see here a number of different mechanisms applied in one map, and I can't really tell you how much time you can save with that, but it's a lot. So let's take a look at what reuse mechanisms we can have applied here. First of all, we have our topic reuse. So the entire topic copyrights and the toasting bread topic is reused between different maps. Obviously, copyrights is very easy to reuse because very often it's exactly the same for all your deliverables. Then we also have I'm sorry about that. Okay, then we also have parts of topics that are reused. So here, the step number 1. We also have the internal note that is controlled with a DITA val file, and that we can basically define when we want to have it published and when not. We can also define, that we don't want this to be translated, because if it's internal content, why translate it? We don't want to, spend time and money on translating this. So in DITA, you can just define, don't translate this, and then your translators will see that and will skip that. And then we also have variable phrases, of course, that change dynamically based on the map that you have. So you can see that, it can be very powerful when you mix different reuse mechanisms, and especially when you know how to do it and when you know how to organize your content for reuse. You can probably understand that reuse is very, very powerful, but it's very also important that you build some rules around it, especially when you work in a team that is a big team, or there's international team, so that everyone follows the same rules, and so that everybody knows where to go to find a specific piece of content or how to find it. So let's now take a look at how you can, organize your content to make sure that it's easy to manage and find for the authors. So I'll just show you how we do that at easyDITA. And we recommend it to our customers too. And what you can see here is a screen capture of what easyDITA looks like. And you can see the global shared folder that is highlighted with a green frame. This is a folder that we have very, very high in our hierarchy. So you can see here that we have the documentation folder, and inside of it we have The second folder is global shared. Inside of this folder, we basically have all of our reusable content. And we know, as a result, the entire team knows where to go when searching for some reusable content. And when you look inside the global shared folder, what you see is that we have a number of different folders organized per type of content that is reusable. So we have a number of diagrams that are reusable. We have some data files that we also store here. We have media, so these can be screen captures and so on and so forth. Then we have variables in warehouses. So warehouses, these are Conref warehouses, and these are variable warehouses. In all of this, everything that is inside of these folders is combined into one map that we add to every map that we create. And as a result, it's very, very easy for us to create Conrefs and so on and so forth. So these are, how you can structure your reusable content into folders, for example, and then into maps. When it comes to warehouse topics, so those containers that you use to reuse elements of topics, within one Conref warehouse, you can, for example, create sections, and in each section, you can have different content types. So, for example, you can have a section with notes only. You can have a section with some informational content. You can have a section dedicated to a specific, for example, area or UI element, like a module inside of the system that you describe. And then when you look at our content library, we are now inside of the warehouses folder. You'll see that we have, for example, a warehouse file with API reusable content. We have a warehouse file with reusable notes, with reusable map editor steps, oxygen steps, really different files here. So, this organization basically depends on your content, the way you work, the specifics of your content. But the important thing is that you organize it in such a way that your entire authoring team, so all authors, basically know where to go to find a specific type of content that they can reuse. And then when it comes to the variable warehouse, so the snippets of content, we like to organize these in tables. And in the table, we have one column for the element with the value. And inside of this element, we have an ID applied to it. And then on the right, we have just a column with the ID added again, so that we basically know very quickly can see, okay, this is the ID for this value, and it's just, easy to understand that I need to search for this meaningful ID to insert this variable into my content with a conref. And again, when you look at our variables folder here, you'll see that we have variables related to DITA and DITA elements. We have variables related to easyDITA interface components as a separate files. We have some links that we change dynamically, also added as variables to our content. So this is just an example of how you can organize your content well. The golden rule here is that, first of all, it's organized in such a way that it's easy for everyone to find and understand where to go to get what. And secondly, it's organized in such a way that you know where the source is always. So if you don't know this idea of spaghetti code, this is something that you can get in DITA. And this happens when you basically reuse content from, not from one single source of truth, but for example, we reuse a step into a procedure from a different procedure, and then you forget which procedure it was, in which manual, in which folder. This is dangerous. You should avoid spaghetti code. I'll just give you this name. I don't really have it explained here. I'm sorry about that, but no time for that. Okay, so just to sum up all of that we said today. First of all, DITA offers a number of different reuse mechanisms, and they allow you to do sometimes magic with your content. But the three most important things that it allows you to do, first of all, it allows you to introduce real single sourcing, which is nothing like copy pasting, and which saves you a lot of time. It also makes your content future proof. And an example of that would be when the name of a product changes and you have the product name added as a variable. All you need to do, you just change it in one place and then it's applied everywhere. So it makes your content future proof. No more find and replace throughout entire documents and then errors related to that. And then lastly, it saves you a lot of time. So based on the white papers by Mark A. Lewis, it saves you up to 50% with Conrefs, so with reusing topic elements, and up to 54% with topic reuse, so reusing entire topics. And when you introduce reuse, remember to reuse mechanisms that are best for your content. Not all of reuse mechanisms will work well with your content. It really depends on what you work with on a daily basis. So try to determine which reuse is the most beneficial for you and start with that. With time, you will see more and more room for other reuse mechanisms, and then you'll be able to also understand better if you can combine them together or not. And we always recommend to mix them. It's almost impossible to just, use one reuse mechanism. I'd say it's too tempting to, not to try more. Then consider localization. This can be a separate webinar, really. But when you reuse content, and especially when you use Conref, so when you reuse snippets for variables, then it can be tricky sometimes. And you need to make sure that you know how to write your content for reuse. And finally, you need to make sure that you organize your content well to avoid spaghetti code and to make sure that it's easy for your team to find the content that they can reuse. And the last two slides are for resources. So I'd like to recommend for those of you who are who would like to, learn about reusing DITA in DITA more. There is a beginner reuse in DITA and advanced reuse in DITA course at learningdita.com. They are free, and you can always go there and learn from those resources. And I would also like to recommend articles. They are linked. So they're on our webpage at easyDITA.com, how to reuse structured content with DITA, also content development guide in our DITA primer for those of you who just start with DITA. And last but not least, at the last slide, you will see, especially the last two bullets, all of the resources that are used to prepare this webinar. And the last two bullets are the white papers by Mark A. Lewis, and that you can read to see the numbers, so the time saving for yourself, and read about how Mark basically got them for his white paper. And that's it. Thank you a lot.
Thank you, Gosia. Reuse really is magic. Now it's time to type in those questions, if you haven't already. And while you do, here's a look at what's coming up. The TC Dojo Mastermind Group meets in 2 weeks. It's a monthly driven member discussion group where attendees present their specific challenges on topics in their mind in a confidential, supportive environment. Mastermind groups have been cited in Forbes as being extremely valuable to attendees. We have 2 going on right now. One is Everything TechCom, DITA, topic-based authoring, specifics of cross-references, graphics. The other is product focused on Arbortext and Windchill. It's a collaborative peer-to-peer environment where everyone can lend their experience to each other on things they need at Sandal today. It's been really amazing to participate in, and a lot of fun too. Mastermind sessions are not free. As a way to guarantee dedication and commitment to all the parties involved, you can sign up at the TC Dojo website. In our next open session, we have Kirk St. Amant from Louisiana Tech. Kirk is collaborating on a project with Tom Johnson. I saw him present at STC Summit last year. He often speaks about pairing practitioners with researchers to advance our profession as a whole. His book, Thinking Globally, Composing Locally, Rethinking Online Writing in the Global Internet, came out earlier this year. He's a fascinating guy who's curious and energetic. It's going to be a great session, so be sure to sign up. How do you do that? Well, go to tcdojo.org. It's a short link that will land you on this page. Scroll down to the bottom and you can see all the things coming up over the next couple of months. All right, here are the questions. Gosia, here's the first one. Is a Conref warehouse the same as a collection file? And she tells me that a collection file is something at their company where they put common content into a single topic. Does that sound about right to you?
I would say as long as a Conref, as long as the file, the collection file, is a single source of truth from which content is basically pulled into different topics, let's say, or any other modules of content, I would say yes. But I would be happy to continue this conversation with an example outside of the webinar, because it would be helpful to just see what this collection file looks like and how it's used.
Excellent, good answer. And we'll send these questions to Gosia to answer and post longer posts too, so be sure to put your question in here if you have it. Here's another one. Is a variable warehouse a key file?
Is a variable warehouse a key file? It is added via a key to a map, so it's linked indirectly. I'm not sure if by a key file we would understand, the same idea behind this term. So I'm going to say that I would say yes. It's basically added via a key. So you could say it is a key file. But again, it's sometimes we use the same terms for different phenomena, so it's difficult to say for sure.
All right, so if you can reply back, Elizabeth, and let us know if that answers your question or post a follow-up. We'll get back to that in a minute. Here's a longer one. If you have a warehoused variable that is used in 5 different manuals, for example, how do you keep track of where that variable is used across your document set so that if you need to change 4 out of 5 instances, you can make sure not to change the 5th by accident?
Okay, so this is something that there was a lot of information, but I actually mentioned that you have a variable house, a variable warehouse file added per map. So basically, you can create a global warehouse map with all of your content, and then use it only for a documentation set that is basically, always the same, and whenever it changes, it really depends on what system you use to manage your content. Some systems are able to create a report for you that will basically tell you that this variable is applied in these topics, and these topics belong to this map, so go to this map and then change, the variable here. And this really depends on the system that you use, whether they offer reports or not. But there is also, depending on how you organize your content, with systems that don't deliver this reporting option, I would say you would just need to go, from a manual to a manual and then verify one by one, and then change it. Only in the manuals it applies to.
That's an interesting idea you had in the first part. That I have to think about that. That's really a great idea. All right, here's the last one. Do you need to know XML or something like it to make use of DITA?
To make use of DITA?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Honestly, I would say that today there is less and less required, to know about data to move on with it. You have tools today that offer interface that looks basically like Microsoft Word or even Google Docs that allow you, to work in an environment that looks very, very familiar, but under the hood they have the XML, and you don't really need to know much about it. As long, from the authoring perspective, there is some part of data that requires a little technical knowledge or support from people who know how to, for example, configure publishing scenarios and specific, for example, apply branding to your content and configure layout for you. So this is something that you can always, ask for. I don't know, to go with consultants. They're always happy to help and then support you throughout the entire process. Oh, I'm sorry. But basically, I would say that today the level of knowledge that you need to have to start with it is pretty low.
Excellent. Great answer. All right. I don't see any further questions, and it looks like she didn't have any follow-up on the other one. So that's great. Thank you so much for doing this. We really appreciate you coming in. And everyone else for attending, thanks for coming to the TC Dojo, where it's all about you, what you want to learn. Subscribe to the TC Dojo mailing list so you can get the link to this session once the video is posted, as well as announcements for future sessions and the link to the survey so you can vote on what you want to learn. Every month we look at that list and go out and find experts like Gosia willing to share our expertise. Why should you tell us what to learn? You should tell us. So be sure to sign up at the URL short link right there. The TC Dojo is our pleasure to host. As always, if you need more personal help, just reach out using your communication method of choice. And we'll see you next time.